Welcome back to the Church on a Mission videos, and today we're looking again at the early church and in the book of Acts where we read about them. And in chapter 2 we read what's called often the fellowship of the believers, and talking a little bit about these early days of the church. And in verse 45 of chapter 2 it says this: "They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need." So Andy, this talks about almost like the sacrifice of the church, that they went without in order that those who needed could have. And it raises a bit of a kind of an issue that sometimes gets talked about, which is the undeserving poor, and that kind of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's a great book, probably a couple of years ago, quite short, called "The Myth of the Undeserving Poor," and it challenges this concept, which I think is essentially a Victorian attitude, that some people were poor by choice, and they were undeserving because they'd got themselves into this situation, and therefore, almost like criminal. And we see it now a bit in this whole issue of scroungers and wasters, and our attitude towards people who, for whatever reason, have found themselves needing state benefits. And in the Bible, you don't read about the undeserving poor.
No.
Jesus didn't say, "I've come to bring good news to the deserving poor."
Yeah.
And the majority of people who find themselves in poverty, it is through no fault of their own. There are some of us who make choices, and they have consequences. But often it's around structures, it's around opportunity, it's around background education. There are many reasons you can find yourself in poverty. So
yeah, and so I guess looking at this passage here, but really the other passages we've been looking at this week, what does God say into that issue? Yeah,
I mean, it's they sold, as you said at the outset, that there's the challenge there. So those who have, selling things in order that those who haven't can be brought out of their need. So there's the challenge there, and that they were doing what Jesus had told them to do. In Luke's version of the Beatitudes, Jesus actually says, "Sell your possessions and give to those in need," and they were living that out.
Yeah.
So and we know we can do that. It's I guess it's a question of whether we ever think of it.
Yeah. Because I suppose often it can be pushed to the sidelines of things, because we almost neglect that element of the gospel as if it's of lesser importance, or doesn't mean as much, or doesn't have great an impact. But actually, God's so clear. Like what we've been hearing this week is the clarity and of the importance of meeting the needs of other people.
Yes.
Like physical needs and emotional needs and spiritual needs, to introduce them to Jesus and let them know that actually they need not worry about stuff, because he provides through miraculous means and through his church. It's so helpful to hear you speak about that kind of issue and facing it directly like this. So thanks for that. Thank you.